Welcome to my YouTube tutorial on setting up Next.13 using the app router with MUI version 5. In their latest release, Next.js has released their new app router which has changed the file structure of the project. This new file structure provides an easier way for developers to work with routes in Next.js. Unfortunately, integrating the new app router with Material UI v5 is not that straightforward. I spent quite a while looking up how to set it up, and and as of recording this video, there is not any official documentation on how to set it up. Eventually, I found a pull request by the person's GitHub's ID SMO043 that has an example of integrating the two in a pull request on GitHub. And using that example with a little bit of additional tweaking, I was able to get it working. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new Next.js project using npx create next app and then at latest. And this should give us version 13 of Next.js. And it's going to ask us a few questions. What is your project named? I will say setup next 13 with MUI 5. Would you like to use TypeScript in this project? I will use TypeScript, but you do not have to. Would you like to use ESLint? Sure, why not? It's helpful. Would you like to use Tailwind? So for Tailwind, I actually recommend to not include Tailwind in your project because it doesn't play very nice with MUI 5. I believe there is a way you can get it to work by making sure the Tailwind CSS gets injected after the MUI 5 styles get applied, but that takes some extra setup and um, I've seen from other people that they have headaches getting the injection order to play well. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and say no. Would you like to use the source directory? I'm going to go ahead and say no to that as well. We can just use the app folder. There's no need to have an extra layer. And if you want to use app router for this tutorial, we are going to say yes. We want to use the app router and we don't need an import alias. So we're going to go ahead and let that build and compile. Okay, so now that that's done, you should see output like this with all the installed dependencies. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to open up the project in VS Code, but you can use your own editor. Now that the Next.js project is installed and the project is created, I'm going to go ahead and give it a test run to make sure everything got installed correctly, and it should be running on localhost 3000. So I'll go ahead and put in localhost 3000 into Chrome. Let's just make sure that everything is working. Looking good. So this is the starter template page that Next.js gives you when you first create the project, and it looks pretty neat. But that looks like we are good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is create an empty folder here and call it theme. And inside this folder, I'm going to create another file, and I'm going to call it theme registry.tsx. And inside this theme registry is where we are going to include our theme object and set up our providers. So first thing I'm going to do is add use client at the top because this will be client-side props, and I'm going to import a few things that we will need for this component. And I'm going to import the create theme method from Material UI. I'm going to import the theme options type. I'm going to import the theme provider. And this all comes from Material Styles. After that, I'm going to import the CSS baseline. This will give us the default theme and also allow Material UI to access some of the styles. like the body inside our project. So we got that imported, and now I'm going to create the empty theme object, options object for now. We will add stuff into it later on, like that. And this theme options type is really helpful when we're trying to fill out the object because it gives you IntelliSense. And then next, I'm going to create the theme with create theme and include our empty theme options. Finally, let's go ahead and create the React component itself. So export default function, I'll call it theme registry. And for our props, I'm going to say children and give it the type of children React dot React node. Okay, and I will return a component that has the theme provider wrapping everything and our empty theme object as the property. And inside here, I will make sure to include the CSS baseline and make sure the CSS baseline goes after the theme provider. And I saw in the pull request that this actually went above here and it still kind of worked, but some of the um, styles were not getting applied, like the background color. And that's because it needs to go afterwards. And then finally, we have the children included here, and then we can go ahead and close this function. Okay, so that does it for our theme object for now. The next thing I'm going to do is add an emotion cache, and this emotion cache was not written by me. It was written by a person named SMO43 on GitHub, and in his pull request to get the app router working, he had an implementation for the emotion cache, and so I will give credit to him, and I will use it. And this code will be included in the example project in the YouTube information below. So I am going to include the emotion cache into our project. And to do that, I'm going to import it. Next app directory emotion cache provider from emotion cache. And then I'm going to actually wrap our entire component with our emotion cache provider. And the motion cache provider needs one property, and it's going to be an object with the key MUI. Okay, so that does it for um, setting up Material UI. Now that we have all that done, we can finally go into our layout file and import our theme provider. And we're going in the layout file because the layout file in the Next 13 new app router acts as the root app for our project. Because the root layout will actually be applied to every single component in your project. So we can leverage that to import our providers that wrap our entire project. And to, so what I'm going to do is I am going to import our theme registry, import theme registry from at theme registry. And then I will go ahead and wrap our body with our theme registry. And that should do it for the setup. So we can go ahead and go back to our browser and make sure nothing is broken yet. And it looks like the background changed, so Material UI must have changed the background to the default background using the CSS baseline that we have here. And so just to verify that everything is set up correctly, I am going to add a few options to our theme. And the first thing I'm going to do is change the font. Material UI recommends that you use the Roboto font. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Roboto. And I will go ahead and show you how to do that. So I'm going to import the Roboto font from Next Font Google because Next.js actually provides this font inside the Next package. And so we can utilize that instead of having to download the font ourselves. And I'm going to create the font by assigning weights. And Material UI uses 4 different weights. It uses 300, 400, 500, and 700. Next, I'm going to add the style, and don't forget the colon. Style is going to be normal and italic. And then finally, subsets can be Latin. And make sure it says weight, not weight. Okay, cool. So now what I'm going to do is go into our theme options object, and I'm going to include our new font. I will add a typography property to the object, and inside here, I'm going to include the font family, roboto.style.font family, and then I'll go ahead and set the size to 12. And then just to really verify that this is set up correctly, we can do a dramatic change to the template by adding a background color. And instead of white, I'll do something like maybe red or this pink color. And if we go back to our browser, we should see that the background has changed to pink. And as you can see, we do have a very bright pink background going on here. And so now we verified that this is working and set up. And of course, you can include other options in here. If you want to edit individual components, then you can include the components property like that. So what I'm going to do next is not necessarily required, but it helps the performance of your development. And what I'm going to do is actually go into our next.js config and add a few properties into our next config project. So the first thing I'm going to add is React strict mode to true, and this will help with your IDE and your linting. I'm going to do swc minify. I'm going to set that to true, and then I'm going to modularize the imports to include material UI. Then we'll set the transform to MUI icons material / and then in here we'll include member. Okay, and so that does it for this tutorial. We should go ahead and verify that everything is okay. It looks like the app crashed, but I think it's because whenever you change the Next.js config, it crashes the app. So we can just go ahead and restart the app and make sure it's working with the new config set up. All right, it looks like we're good to go. So thank you guys so much for this tutorial. Remember to like, and if you have any issues, comment down below, and I'll see if I can help out. Thank you guys so much.